unwind what they're really saying, genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that college promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics, keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid, you're in debt for being born. Messengers are mourn, just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. I never, ever, ever could have imagined that I was going to come before anybody to defend a police person, let alone the entire institution of policing. That never crossed my mind once in my entire life. And here I am, and I'm going to apparently do that, and I resent it. Honestly, I resent it. I consider myself as anarchist as I could be in this modern society and still get along, and inspire anarchism in other people. And so especially as someone who likes to think anarchically, in an academic, philosophical, and political and economical way, it's stunning to me that I'm going to sit here and defend this institution of a non-anarchist state. I am completely and fully for the abolishment of all government and all of its institutions, and I'm going to say that right now before a bunch of idiots come in and accuse me of not being for that. I want to remind everybody that we do exist in this place where we are right now and not in fantasy land. And so I will explain to you where I'm at and why I'm at it. And I want to also explain to you how if you are someone who is calling for the abolition of the police suddenly without warning and without a plan, then you are falling exactly into a trap that's been set for you by the people who intend to destroy everything you hold dear, as far as I can tell. So there's that. So I'm completely for decentralization of every single aspect of community governance and the disbanding of all systemized rulership. I am completely for that. I'm 100% for that. That is my goal in life. If we could achieve that tomorrow, bliss. I would be in bliss. It would be amazing. And we can't, because we live in a physical reality and things happen in sequential order. And that things have cause and effect in our reality. And so we have to plan and think to get to places where we want to go. They don't happen by accident. And if they seem to be happening very quickly and without warning and with media support and government support, they're probably not heading in the way that you had possibly intended. So we'll think about that as well. I am completely for localizing all leadership and remaining localized and eternally flexible and adaptive to changing community structure and needs. Always. I am for that. That is what I think is best. I think small, localized, independent unions of people who have chosen completely freely to be a part of that is the best thing that humans could possibly do. I am also realistic enough to know that 97% of our society is not there. They are not capable of that at this moment. They've never considered it. No one's ever asked them to think about it once ever. 97% at least, I'm saying, have never considered taking responsibility for their communities. We're very, very far from a place where we could have communities take care of themselves. We're so incredibly far. We don't even have individuals taking care of themselves. So 97% of society is not there yet. And I cannot live in an anarchist utopia within a larger world of pure chaos. No one can. That doesn't exist. If the world's going to fall to chaos, then anarchy is not going to happen. What's going to happen instead is mob rule and might makes right. We're going to have rulers and we're not going to like them. I'm pretty sure that's what tends to happen in unstructured, complete chaos. And that's what would happen if we got rid of all police tomorrow, which is what, crazily and without any thought or any warning or any thought at all from anybody. That's what many people are now calling for on many sides of the political spectrum. and people from all sorts of walks of lives. It's clearly insanity. It's stunning to me. I did not think that this day would ever happen, that normal people in society would be calling for the just sudden disbanding of the police. So I'm here to talk about why that would be a ridiculous choice to make. And this is a thoughtful discussion that I'm going to have. I'm going to lay out some points and some evidence, and we're going to discuss why you can be for the abolition of the police eventually and not for the abolition of the police tomorrow. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to say what's up to the people in the chat because there's some people out here. We got the digital apparition, that sexy motherfucker is here. We've got Lacey Mariposa, the goddess is in the house. We've got Biggie Smollett, best friend of the show. What's up, what's up? We've got Sue Finelli of the repeating numbers. We've got Kid Vicious. No, your sound is better, bitch. Let's fight. We've got Jay Marley. What's up, Jay Marley? And we've got Jeff Green in the house. What's up, guys? And we've got other people watching. And I'm aware that many people who are a fan of this show are not going to like this episode. I'm aware that some people might decide, out of ignorance and just inability to think that they're going to never listen again. And that's fine, because I've never been doing this for a popularity contest or to make money or to do anything else except to express myself and have a place where people can think clearly and have some truth. So like many people who suffer from cognitive dissonance, there will be people who are otherwise really neat people who are just going to tune out and never think about any of this, but we won't let that stop us. We're going to just keep trucking on, and as always, I like to tell you a few wow, my picture just disappeared and now I'm upside down. Wow, I don't even know how I did that, like, honestly. Oh, and now I'm right side up but backwards. Well, what? I'll take it, dude. Backwards is fine. So, I would like to remind you guys, you can always go to CoreySharman.com. Rogueways.org takes you to the same place. This is my site built by scratch by me through WordPress. All of the images in it that are photographic are my own. It's a little artistic piece. There's a lot of writing that I do. You can find them here. There's poems, there's articles, there's essays, there's all kinds of stuff. You can link to my Subscribestar from here. You can link to some of the old episodes of Rogue Ways from here. You can check out my published works. I've got 3 books. One of them is a fictional novel called Sine Curve of Aeons. Right now it's on sale in the store if you want to go buy it for the cheapest you ever will get it, with an inscription from me and a few Rogue Ways stickers thrown in to boot. If you want the hardcover, that's available as well. You can get my memoir from my time teaching on a Native American reservation. It's called A Gypsy on the Res. It is irreverent, funny, and incredibly emotional. You can also grab my book of poetry, Mutable Realia. There's also plenty of free poetry on the site. Mutable Realia is some of my best picks of my older stuff, and I'll probably come out with another soon, but that's that. Tarot and Guidance is a tab you can click on to go check out some of my philosophy and the deck I use and what I like to do with tarot. If you want to buy a reading, you can get a 10-card layout or a 4-card layout. These are in-depth, spiritually attuned access to your higher self / spiritual guides and the messages they would like to give you. People who get tarot readings from me tend to agree that they are at the very least profound and at the best life-changing. It is well worth the money. It is about 2 hours of my time and 1 of yours, depending on how we set it up, and so I highly suggest you check that out if you're looking for something deeper, some information, some messages that you would like for yourself. If you go to the shop tab, you can buy all kinds of fun things. We've got Rogue Ways merch, we've got Orgonite pendants, we've got all kinds of classes you can take, and we now have irreverent merch as well, which is just some fun stuff you can buy. So that's rogueways.org or CoreySharman.com if you want to check out those things and support me there. But my favorite way to be supported is through Subscribestar. Subscribestar has different tiers. So if you are like many of us and you don't have a lot to give, but you have found value in Rogue Ways and you'd like to share value back, which I appreciate so much, we even have a $1 level per month. That is very affordable for anyone. There's a $7, $22, and a $55 level as well, and they all have their own perks. Of course, the $55 level comes with a tarot reading per month, personalized just for you at a discount, in addition to all the Subscribestar stuff. So come subscribe today. If you found value, I greatly appreciate you sharing value back. And of course, there's SoundCloud, Rogue Ways. You can catch every single every single episode of Rogueways ever on SoundCloud for free, and it can be in any podcast app streaming from there. So we will see who else has shown up. We've got Joe Van Berlo. What's up from Toowoomba, Australia? Welcome. Let's say hi. I think we said hi to everybody. Well, hi, everybody. Oh, thank you, Lacey. Lacey says Lindsay's tarot readings are outstandingly profound and insightful. I highly recommend seeing her for a reading. Thank you, Lacey. That is nice of you to say. And I know she means it because I know how much it affected her life. So I also want to tell you guys, my friend and my twin, Lindsay Smith, has this fantastic store called Shooting Rainbows. Oh my God, she's not sponsoring this. She didn't even ask me to do this. I just really love her products, and she recently sent me a new one, which I had never smelled before. So she basically makes essential oil mixes of her own, and then she puts them in candles, salts, like soaking salts. She's got sprays. I think she has lotions now. The sprays are amazing. I love them. You can spray them around every room, have a different vibe there. The thing that is really cool and unique about her is she actually infuses each and every one of these with magical essence. So she times it to the moon and the sun and the stars, literally, while she's making batches. She times it to these things astrologically. She has crystals that have also been infused with various energies, and they're literally physically in the things that you buy from her. So you can hear, I think you maybe can hear that. There's still crystals shaking around in the bottom of this empty bottle of mine. She literally puts them in the products, and they smell amazing. This is my favorite. If you can see it, it's Spiritual Awakening. That's my favorite one. It's not just because of the name, it's because of the scents in it, or my favorite scents, and the combo in which she has created them is to die for. And she just sent me this one, Euphoria, and this is a Pulse Point roller perfume, and it smells so good. I never even heard of it. I think it's like a newer one. Oh my God, I love it. I'm putting it on right now. So, seriously, she didn't even know I was going to do this, but I just wanted to give a shout out because these products are amazing, and like, you're not going to find this from some other store somewhere. And I promise you, she's not paying me to do that. I just really, really love these products, and I wanted her to, she deserves a shout out. So there you are. Go to shootingrainbows.com and pick out your favorite stuff and support Lindsay. She's awesome. So let's get to it. Man. Okay. So let's start out. I'm just going to say, that's not where I wanted to start out. We'll go back to just a full screen of me. I'll tell you some stories. So I'm going to start out saying, I know that cops are bad. Cops are bad. Okay. Like, I have many experiences with cops that are highly disturbing experiences. As a child, as a kid, driving around on my little tiny rural island, me and all my friends were basically pursued by the cops constantly. Just like you might be when you were a kid. We trained ourselves. If you see a cop, you're like, cop. There's a cop, 5-0 fuzz, like you call it out, right? You warn your friends. Everybody does. Maybe not everybody. People who are doing bad things do. But we were profiled and we were harassed because we were young. And I mean, we were doing bad shit. Like we could have easily gone to jail many times. Most days we could have gone to jail if we were caught. And they knew that. And so they, but we felt profiled. We're like, oh, we're just young. And so you hate us and whatever, dude. But they were after us, like seriously, more than anyone else my age. So, we hid from them. We didn't love them. And we got to know them. It was a very small town, and so I knew most of the cops by name. And not everyone did, but, we, again, were pursued by them and interacted with them frequently. And so we knew them. And some of them were cool, and we had a decent relationship with them. And some of them were complete and total tyrants and assholes, and we were terrified of them. Because if they could, they would catch you with anything and get you for it. And one of them was especially corrupt. I won't say his name. I don't know if it matters, but if anyone who knows me and knew us then, like, who I'm talking about. He was a pretty power hungry, tiny little man. And he, one night in a bar I was in, there was an old Indian guy, Indian Native American, not Indian, and he was passed out at this table. He was considered, like, everybody knew him. He was drunk all the time, and that night specifically, he had urinated in a booth in the part of the bar that was a restaurant that was closed for the night instead of the bathroom. And so they called the police on him, and like everybody knows, don't call the police unless you absolutely have to, because things like this happen. He showed up, the corrupt one, and with two other cops, and the guy was literally passed out at a table. He wasn't even moving. But nonetheless, they busted into the bar in all their glory and broke out their tasers and started tasing him, and tasing him, and tasing him, and tasing him. He's passed out. He was passed out to begin with. And even talking about it, like, makes me really emotional, because tasing somebody who is that drunk and fucked up and large and old is very likely to cause a heart attack and death. So I was like literally watching him possibly murder this guy. And I think I told this story on a recent episode of Rogue, because we were talking about groupthink, and I was the only person in the group who stood up and said, "Why are you tasing him? Stop." Like, he's clearly passed out. Which then caused him to almost tase me and, you know, whatever. But, you know, that's how bad, like that cop almost murdered this man. That would have been murder. Clearly horrifying. This guy was a dick. This is just the beginning of my list of horrible cop things that I've seen in my life. Just so you know, I know how fucked up cops are. Like, I watched that guy almost kill that guy. I had a friend. His father was a federal marshal. You could call that a cop, right? That's a type of policing agent. He was a federal marshal, and he, just from what I know of, that's just a tiny snippet of his life that I know of, he covered up a murder of this young woman because his friend was the one who murdered her, and it was very clearly a murder, and they somehow pulled off to make it look like, and it was an accident, and she accidentally, like, smashed a guitar over her head and fell over the ledge and died. And so he helped cover that up. That in itself is horrifying. I know he robbed at least one local business, which must have just been for shits and giggles, because why? It was, like, not a super lucrative business, and I think federal marshals are usually, like, have a pretty decent amount of money. So I guess he just got off on it, I'm not sure. I've probably brought this up on the show before, too. He grabbed my ass when I was 16. He would constantly talk about my legs and how nice my legs were. So he was obviously very pervy and disgusting, too. And his son, my friend, he got him off the hook for murder charges. He literally killed somebody horribly, and that makes me emotional to talk about also. And he got him out of jail for that. So, bad cop, super bad cop, really corrupt, really abusive to his family, abusive to the community, super power tripper. It gets worse. You know, those are the couple of the bad cop things I've seen. I have two different acquaintances from my childhood, people who I know through other people, who were both male and both abducted by police people and raped by them in the back of the car as young people, as like young teenage boys. Pretty fucking awful. Like, pretty fucking awful. I can't even fucking imagine, right? Very, very awful. I myself have been beaten by police without breaking any laws at all, literally. Totally sober, not breaking any laws. Ripped out of the house, thrown on the ground, dragged down the hall, rammed into walls, slammed leg on the car door on my leg. Like, horrifying. I mean, not that bad, because I, like, lived, right? Like, could be worse. But pretty fucked up. 3 cops versus one, 18-year-old me, and lots of bruises. And falsely charged me with all kinds of shit. I had to go to court. I had to prove that none of them were true. Things like, bizarre things like, possession was, easy to say. Like, saying I was under the influence was easy to say, but they even said that I had a concealed weapon with the intent to harm or something weird. And I was like, I don't even fucking own a weapon. Like, at that time I didn't. Just crazy shit. So pretty fucking corrupt police, right? Could have ruined my life if I were less intelligent or less capable of defending myself easily. Could have had me in jail and, lost in the system, because that's what happens to people. And so, because of things like this, every time, like many people, like many human beings in our society, I've been terrified every single time a cop is around me. Every single time. I'm, like, terrified. I'm like, okay, this could be, like, this person could tase me to death. This person could rape me in the back of their car. This person could make up false charges and I could go to jail for nothing at all, like doing nothing wrong. All these things could happen and I know it, just like you probably know it, and just like you probably feel fear when you're around police. And maybe you don't. Maybe you're one of the lucky people who's only ever had good cops and good cop stories and you have no fear at all. I don't know, but most people I know are somewhat aware that cops can be like this. And so I think that is something that people have been pretty aware of my whole life, at least. I literally don't know anyone who isn't aware of those things. I never have. I've always only known people who understand that this is what cops can be like. I want to stop here and pause and say, those things I just described represent, in actuality, a very, very small minority of the countless interactions with cops that I've had. If I had to list every single interaction and tally them up, it would be less than 10% of the interactions. I don't even know how much, but not a large percentage of them that were that fucked up. And that means all the rest of them were either fair or decent or good. So we'll just keep that in mind. I know how fucked up the cops are. I know how lots of people are very scared of them for very good reason. And I'm also intelligent enough to understand the weighting of those things is such that most cops in my life have been pretty decent to good people. I also want to point out, before we move on from the cops are bad section of this talk, that cops... Over half, here, let's look at it. Let's look at it together. Cops are bad, right? Half of people killed by police have a disability. They're disabled people. Half of people. I'm just going to emphasize this because if we want to pick a group that police seem to have issues with targeting and or treating really poorly, it's disabled people. But nobody talks about that. Why? Why does nobody talk about half of people killed by police having a disability? How come that's not brought up ever? Some of them happen to be black. Some of them happen to be not. But half of them, I'm going to just scream it because some are white too. Half of them are disabled. Okay. You can check this out on your own if you want. But we have to ask, why? Like, who does the narrative serve that we only focus on police killing black people? Not minority people, not Native American people, not Hispanic people, not anything but just black people. Who does it serve to focus on that? I don't know. Maybe George Soros. Could be. Could be that it serves George Soros's purpose. Could be not, but it could be, right? Oh. He's been trying to take over local law enforcement agencies, I guess. If you want to read this, you can decide for yourself if the evidence supports that or not. It seems pretty obvious that he is definitely trying to influence the culture and, outlook and political movements in the United States, just like he has around the world. In many ways, there's a lot. So anyways, he picks certain political people to get behind, and obviously that's one way of doing it. But he also specifically has pumped money into Black Lives Matter for years. He has done so. Somebody pointed out an interesting thing. Black Lives Matter is not a nonprofit. It's actually a corporation. All this money being sent to it, they don't even... Nobody even knows what all this money is going to. All these leftist organizations are sending all this money into Black Lives Matter, and nobody's even, explaining where the money's going to or why. What's it for? What are they actually, hoping to accomplish? And then you go read their list of fucking... God... It's hard to even talk about. You go read their list of demands or whatever and their creed. And it's very fascinating. It definitely does not have much to do with black people when you get down to it. But yeah, so who does it benefit to only focus on black lives and not disabled lives or any other lives that are all affected by police negatively? It might benefit George Soros in many different ways. The Open Society Foundation, $18 billion to Open Society Foundation? What the fuck does Open Society Foundation do that George Soros needs to give them $18 billion? Think about how much money, how much media you can buy, how many people in the media you can buy. It's just fucking crazy. So, Black Lives Matter Foundation, he's given, I guess, $3 million or more. I'm sure it's more, but just through at least the Open Society Foundation. So he's clearly a part of this movement and funding it and helping it move. So, I mean, at the very least, whatever it is George Soros is after, maybe you like it. Maybe you want his, version of reality to come out on top. And so maybe you're down with it, but you should at least wonder, who are these riots serving? Well, one of the people is probably George Soros. This is funny. Because what is it distracting us from, right? If he's having these riots, he's funding them or whatever, and there's some people and some forces that want these riots to be happening, and it's not necessarily about Black people. There's people in the movement who are very, very genuine people, and they have very genuine gripes about society and very big problems to address that are very real, and we should care about them, and yet they're being co-opted and manipulated into someone else's agenda. So again, it's helping, George Soros in whatever kind of world he wants to make, and it's distracting us as well from Hillary Clinton being in court, as well as other things going on. This is hilarious because I wanted to show you guys a story that was proving that Hillary Clinton was in court, and I could almost only find fact checkers that said that she wasn't, of course, because our information is controlled, right? Fact checked, Hillary Clinton was not in court, and she did not lose her case. But check it out. Was Hillary Clinton in court on June 2nd, 2020, and did she lose her case about the missing emails while the media was reporting on the George Floyd protests and coronavirus? No, that's not true. Now check it out. There was a court proceeding on June 2nd, but Clinton was not there. Due to COVID-19 precautions, the hearing was conducted as a teleconference with no courtroom appearances. So she was fucking in court. She was fucking in court. She was in court. Fuck you. Fuck them. They do this all the time now. I'm sure you guys have all noticed it. They're like, yeah, no, it's false because what the one word you used was wrong, but all the rest of it was true and your conclusion was also true. But that one word was wrong, so it's false. And no one reads this shit. They just go, oh, see, it's false. Whatever lead stories and Snopes said it was false, so it is. Anyway, she was in court. Sorry, not physically in court. She was teleconferenced into her court appearance. And it says she didn't lose because no decision was issued at the time, but she is actually required to return in September and to show up to defend herself. So in a way, she did lose, and that maybe was decided 5 minutes later, a day later, whatever, but whatever. It's very, very crafty how they do this shit. So yes, we were distracted by that. Even people in the truth and conspiracy communities were like, is this even real? I can't find anything on it, because they really want to hide it. George Soros really wants to hide this. So it not only serves Mr. Georgie and his vision of the world, but it also distracts us from some pretty important shit going on. Wouldn't the Democrats hate for everyone to realize that Clinton actually is being prosecuted for really fucking heinous crimes? I'm sure they'd hate that. And it's all like a fucking game anyway, red, blue, who cares? But it's just very interesting to look at the details that everyone's missing. So, again, police are bad, okay? There are bad police that do horrifying things that make it terrifying to be around them and make that terrifying to get pulled over. It makes it terrifying to have to interact with them if for some reason they're called to wherever you are. Those things are all true, and corruption needs to be dealt with. When there are corrupt police like that, they need to be dealt with, and we need, methods in our society for more, accurately pulling these people out of the mix and making sure they don't serve any more in positions of power. Those are all true things. We can all, I think, get behind that. Across the board, for peoples of all colors, sizes, ages, ability levels, we all want to see police not be able to abuse us, and all of us. None of us want that. So, that's phase one, right? Let's see. Phase one is over, so let's say what's up to some peeps. We've got Florence Gardner in the house. What's up, Florence? The problem, Florence says, is that they are employing psychopaths in the police force. It's a mixed bag. Oh, yeah, there's psychopaths in the police force. There's also beautiful humans in the police force. Beautiful humans. Lori couldn't find this on YouTube. Oh my god. It says it's streaming on all 3 channels, so I'm sure they're trying to hide it from people. What's up, oik? I am a tough cookie, thanks. We all have bad cops worldwide, Joe Van Berlo says. But if you get rid of the cops and bring in the UN, it will turn totally into martial law. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. You're so smart, Joe Van Berlo. What's up, Chloe Bell? Divide and conquer is the underlying factor. Yes, and if you haven't realized that game yet, you're part of the problem. The reason that they chose black people and not some other minority is black people are the largest minority. You have the largest groups fighting each other. The country is divided. How convenient. If you picked disabled people, just everybody would just be like, yeah, let's help disabled people stop getting killed by cops. Not that we don't want black people to not get killed. We all want no one to get killed by cops, but a much smaller part of the population is disabled, and they're also much less vocal and able to represent themselves. So it'd be a lot harder to get huge crowds drawn out. You know, it'd be a lot harder to divide most of the population. That's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully no one misconstrues that. I think I said hi to Chloe Bell, but I'll say it again. What's up, guys? So if you are listening on DLive, Facebook, YouTube, or the podcast app, you can always pop into YouTube and say hi to more people. Usually. Some people gather on Facebook from time to time. But now let's talk about how cops are good. Okay. Cops are good, too. Some cops are bad and some cops are good. So let's talk about the good cops. If you have never lived somewhere without police people, then you're calling for the abolition of police. You're ignorant and you're acting in ignorance. You have to be able to understand what happens to a place when police disappear. And then if you still want to call for the abolition of police, that's totally cool. But when you live somewhere where the police all disappear because there's no funding for them, specific things happen. I lived in a place where the police were there. We had funding for them and we had plenty of police, and then the funding got cut and we had no police. And we had, this is in Washington State, in Granite Falls, and this is in 2000. I'm going to bring up the thing so we can look. But in that period of time, before, nothing happened. The police presence got cut. My house got broken into twice, almost immediately. My car got stolen 3 times all of a sudden, and been stolen by a long ass time. I got a stalker. A stalker started stalking me at my house, at my house at night and stuff. They tried to break into my house at night. I have to assume to rape and murder me. I don't know why else you would, but they break into my house in the middle of the night. And all of that happened because cops left the area. Because criminals know that when there's no police around, almost no one is ready to defend themselves. And so they go for it. They know they can. They know that no one's going to stop them. Even if you never called the police to handle one of the issues you've been involved with, you may not be aware of the background effect of just having police around. It is a huge deterrent to crime. They don't have to come be at your house waiting for the car thief to stop them in action. That's not how it works. It's that the car thief knows, like, well, if I go do that, like, I'm gonna get caught and go to jail, and I don't really want to, and they weigh, and sometimes they go for it anyway, but way more often they're like, let's not stalk and kill that lady. It's just a hassle. I'm not joking. So let's look at the facts. This is in Granite Falls, Washington we're just going to scroll down to the year. Right, we had Granite Falls is the purple graph, right? So in 2010, everything was fine. Then they cut the funding, and look at 2011. It doubles. It goes from 200 to 400. It doubled. Crime doubled. Just I was there, I lived it. I was the victim of much more crime in that time. It was crazy. It got a little bit better in the following years because we got a little bit more, community kind of responds. We get help from state troopers and stuff happens. And now since then they got more funding and crime's going back down again. Wow, what do you know? That's just one piece of data to show you that cops are actually good for you in many ways that you might not ever consider because you've always lived somewhere where cops are. We also have studies. This one's from 2018. I mean, it's called More Cops, Less Crime because basically in every single metric that they looked at, in every single place, and every single way they looked at it, when you have more cops, there is less crime committed. It's pretty simple. I mean, I will throw this out if anybody wants to just like check this out. I might even do a list of the links I'm using if people want it or whatever, but you can find it. Just search More Cops, Less Crime. It's a Princeton study from 2018. It's pretty clear. And again, if I didn't already say it clearly enough, it's not that having cops physically there at the moment prevents the crime. It's that in general, when criminals think about cops being around, they are less likely to commit the types of crimes that are obvious and reported, like assault and theft and burglary. Cops are also good in other ways. Remember this guy? This officer who was suspended because he made a video against the lockdown? Remember him? Some people thought and still think, and maybe it's true, that he's like a, staged sort of like agent for some reason. I don't know what that would have accomplished. It seems like he was just a cop who was like, hey, you know what? It seems weird that we're all locked down over this. It doesn't seem very right. It seems like it's against our rights. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of facts to back it up. It seems illogical. And being a cop in our society, as we all know, cops have more power than the average person. And so his voice carried a lot more weight. And he was on shows like, I don't know, Tucker Carlson or something on Fox. Like billions of people saw his video and heard his name, and that's why they had to take him down, because he was too effective. Because people in power, when they're your allies, they have a lot of power and they can help you a lot. It seems so simple, but people miss this for some reason. But some cops are good. In fact, I'd say most cops are good. They're good people. They're not like a lot of us, and they haven't seen through a lot of the fucking system and the bullshit. But that doesn't make them bad people. They're trying to do well, and then sometimes the truth hits them, like it hit this guy, and they're like, hey, I need to speak out about this because I'm in a position of power, and that means a lot, and I should use my power for good. Jay Marley says, more cops equals less crime unless you consider extortion by the police a crime, which I do. Well, yeah, if you're talking about just like writing tickets and you have to pay them and that's extortion, sure. Again, we live in a society that is not perfect. And if we just disbanded the police tomorrow, you'd get a lot worse things than tickets, just like I just described. You might get stalked and raped. You might get your house broken into every single day. And you listening may be more likely than the average person to own a gun and take care of yourself. And that's rad. But again, remember, 97% of people are not there with you. And you would just then be sentencing them to be raped and abducted and robbed and whatever. Because that's what criminals do. And are you going to go to everybody's house every time they have a problem and try to protect them? Like, probably not, honestly, probably not. It'd be cool if you did. It'd be rad. And we'll get to that later in the show. But just consider. Just consider. What's up, Deuce? Deuce says, Lindsay, the community aspect needs to step up without cops. Yes, I've said it. I've said it in this show. I'll say it again later in this show. I've said it before this show ever came on. Like, that's obviously true. And 97% of people aren't there yet. And you aren't out organizing that right now, are you? You're not. So that's not going to happen. It will if people organize it, but that's not what is happening. It's not what happened when the cops didn't show up to some of these riots. Sometimes it did. Sometimes people showed up with guns in organized ways and then nobody got looted, and that was rad. Very rare. If it happened everywhere, it'd be cool. I'd say, sweet, let's get rid of cops then. We have... Everyone on the main stage slanders the word anarchy. That's absolutely true, Jay. Every time I watch the news, they're like, there's anarchy and these riots. And I'm like, that's not anarchy, but nice try, buddy. They absolutely do not know the meaning of the word. And I agree with you again. I'd love, as I said at the beginning, as I'll say for the rest of my life, I'd love to abolish all government and to just take care of our communities ourselves. And I also recognize that no one is there yet, and that's not going to happen tomorrow. I'll get around to it. So this is one good cop. Here's another good set of cops. Sheriffs are a type of law enforcement as well, and sheriffs have even more power than regular police force people. And in Washington State, at least, again, a lot of what I talk about comes from my experiences in Washington because I lived there up until last September. So in Washington State, when we had an unconstitutional law put into place regarding gun ownership, we had more than 20 sheriffs refuse to enforce that law. When a sheriff refuses to enforce an unconstitutional law, then that ensures that all of us have our rights still intact. That's a good cop. That's a good set of cops. And that is pretty awesome. Again, these people have more power. If you had like the pyramid, like you and I, most people listening, we're at the very bottom, right? All of us together, no matter our skin color, ability level, sexual preference, or our religion, any of it, we're all down there together. And above us is police and sheriffs and military people and on up until we get to the lizards. So... You know, when those people above us decide to be like, oh yeah, I'm a human being and I care about these things and stand up for them, then that is incredibly good for us. Don't discount them. They can be your ally in the minutia that we need to step towards getting to actual freedom. So cops can be good. Okay, individual cops can be good. The presence of police has a deterrent effect on crime, which most people don't have a deterrent effect on otherwise. And cops and other types of police enforcement can be our best allies, and their power can help in places where we are powerless otherwise. I also want to talk about how this movement doesn't seem to be helping Black people. It seems like Black Lives Movement used to be good. You know, like most things, it starts in an actual grassroots way, responding to actual community problems and actual oppression and actual, experiences. And then as it gains power, the powers that be see, that's going to gain power and we don't control it. So infiltration happens and then that movement gets co-opted. We saw the same thing with Occupy. We saw the same thing with Anonymous. It gets the leaders get taken down or otherwise, pushed to the side, and the people who take their place are owned. And this guy, if you haven't seen it yet, was a Black Lives Matter movement organizer back in 2016 or so. And in 2017, he stepped out of the movement and he made this video. It's 15 minutes. I'm not going to play it, but I just threw the link in the chat if you want to share it or watch it, or if you've already seen it, that's cool. But basically, he talks about what any of us who have organized on a political grassroots level have seen, and that is the infiltration of your organization by outside forces that are organized and paid for. And they're very good at what they do. And you can recognize them, but not everyone can, because 97% of people aren't aware. And so they're usually very successful. And so again, just like every other movement that we see, Black Lives Matter has been co-opted for some time, clearly funded by George Soros anyways at this point. And in addition to that, at a lower level, at a more immediate level, it's infiltrated by all kinds of actors. We also have the whole point that George Floyd probably it's possible he wasn't even killed. We don't even know. We know deep fake shit and all kinds of like false flag things and who knows what happened. But at the very least, if he was killed, and maybe he probably was, who knows? I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But at the very least, he was killed by someone he'd known for years and years and years. It's not even contested. Like, it's known. It's fact that they knew each other for years. And so it's crazy to me that people are like, this is a cop, a white cop killed a black guy. And it's like, a man killed his friend. That's what happened. Who cares what color they were? You can't make this about race when it's a personal crime of passion. If you know somebody and you're murdering them, it's a crime of passion. Which is most murders, honestly, by people who know each other. So it's not surprising, and it's not about race. If you've been friends with someone for years, you don't suddenly become racist and murder them. Usually, it could happen, but nobody's established the evidence that that's what happened here. Clearly, something else was happening. It's been posited all kinds of things, but maybe there was some a sexual interaction between wives and this man who was murdered, that's something that people kill for. So who knows? I don't know. I don't pretend to know, but if you've known someone for years, that's not racism. We could also look at the lineup of the cops who were involved, and it's like a nice little hodgepodge of races there. It's like a pretty diverse crew of killers. So that's also interesting that we were able to make that about race when it was like the most diverse cast you've ever seen. Very, very interesting. It is corruption. Again, either way, if that guy really is a cop and he really did kill him, then that's not cool. It should never happen to anybody, and we should address it. But it definitely doesn't seem like it was about race. So how convenient that a co-opted movement picked, a convenient killing to suddenly start making a lot of trouble and burning down their own neighborhoods. This guy is named Killer Mike. Killer Mike is, he's awesome. He's a rap rapper. And he's in Run the Jewels. I don't know a lot about him. I just know him because my love loves him. And so this is how I heard about Killer Mike. But basically, Killer Mike gave this tearful speech. I don't know if you noticed, Killer Mike is a black guy. Not that it should fucking matter, but apparently everyone's obsessed with like what the color of the skin of the person saying the thing about the events. That matters greatly right now. So it just so happens that he's black. He gave a tearful speech Friday night, and I liked what he said. Because apparently he's the son of a police officer, which was very interesting to note. And I've heard other things in which he's like very supportive of Black Lives Matter. He's very supportive of, ending discrimination against black people. And but he also discouraged rioting and urged that people be better than burning down our own homes. I don't know if you know, but one of the apartment buildings that was burned down in some of the riots was mostly homed low-income African-American people. Interestingly enough. He points out, it is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy. He continues, it is your duty to fortify your own house so that you may be a house of refuge in times of organization. And now is the time to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize. Sounds a lot like what I said. And what many people are saying. But my hope is that since my color of skin is wrong, that maybe people who are listening to this will hear it from someone whose color of skin is right. If you see oppression and injustice in your community and your society, and you make a plan to go about and end it. You don't just go murdering dogs and strangling them in the street and burning down your neighbors' houses and hope that things turn out better. That's not how shit gets better. Many people who have been killed in these riots, and there's been tens of murders, and I don't know if anyone's covering it, but you can go find, like, people are being murdered, black, white, yellow, like, all kinds of people are being murdered in these riots, not by the cops. How fucking crazy is that? This all started because a cop killed his friend, who happened to be black, and now we have tens of people being killed in the streets, just for nothing. Just murdering people. I guess 2 more murders have happened by cops since this all started, but tens and tens have happened just by random people who are out trying to settle scores or just to fucking fight or who knows what the fuck. So yeah, I don't even remember what my point was at this point. What section are we in? Oh, that this movement doesn't seem to be helping black people. It seems to be hurting them. Their houses are burning down. Many of them have been killed in the actual violence itself, and the movement has been co-opted. So, if we want to help black people, and we should all want to help every people, but if we want to help black people, it seems like we would need to get a little bit more concrete than this, and more directed and less taken along by a movement that has been bought and paid for by forces that we don't maybe agree with. Again, maybe you do and you should join them. That's cool. I don't care. But you should at least know who you're working for. So what's interesting too is in all of this, we learn that it might not even be that true that black people are more likely to die at the hands of police than other races. This is from NPR, which I think a lot of people consider to be leftish, and whatever. And so maybe people will listen more, I don't know. But I liked that it came from there for that reason. And it's a study that shows that white police officers are not more likely to shoot minority suspects. And part of that seems to be because they're terrified of the criticism. They're terrified that it will be called racist and they'll be fired. So in fact, like this pressure, this is old. This is from last year. This is from before all of this madness. It seems like the pressure has been for so long to have scrutiny on the police for possibly killing or harming or arresting, people of color more often than other people. That pressure has seemingly created this response in which they're actually less likely to use violence and kill in those cases. Isn't that interesting? We also have the statistics from 2019. 1,003 people were shot and killed by police. I would like to point out that many of these were done in self-defense. If someone's coming at you with a weapon or to harm you and you kill them, I think most of us would not call that murder. And so if you go through this, you find that the number of people who were killed who didn't have a weapon, in which case I would call it murder, is very small, actually. I forget. I think it's 28, and I think 9 of those people were black, and 19 of them were white. So I guess that's somewhat disproportionate. I don't actually even know if it is. Let me look. What's the proportion of black and white people in the U.S.? Not by state. We want the whole country. Oh, of course. Look at this. The fourth one is people shot to death by U.S. police by race. Because you can't just... everything has to be politicized now. You can't just have a search and have it turn up some facts. You have to have the spin put on it. You have to be propagandized at all times. I don't know if I'm going to find this very easily. If you guys know in the chat and you want to throw it up, that'd be rad. Oh, look, African Americans are 13%. So, and then we'd have to know the white non-Hispanic is 61%. So if you want to do some math for me and tell me how 9 to 19 compares to 13% to 61%, that'd be cool. It doesn't seem super disproportionate, but maybe I'm doing the math wrong in my head. And even if it is disproportionate, we don't have any way of knowing that that is because they are black. There may be other things that we don't know. Remember our class in logic a few episodes ago? Just because two things are correlated doesn't mean that there's a cause behind them. So we would have to do way more studying to find out why there were 19 white people and 9 black people killed by the police last year who did not carry a weapon. And I also want to point out that some of these, even though they didn't carry a weapon, did do things like come at the police people with their car, which might be a weapon in that case. So you have to take all of these things and you have to think about them. You can't just take it and run, right? And I don't care what conclusion you come to. I just wish that people would think and look at things and try to understand facts and see what might be true. So, and at this point, there's bad cops, there's horrifying cops, there's, power differentials that don't seem very fair, and also there's good cops, and there's things about cops' presence that helps all of us in some way. And again, most cops are not horrible psychopathic murderers just on the rampage looking to rape and kill. But at this point, cops don't even get a fair deal. It is really, really, really popular and so easy to just hate police. And so I don't know many people who don't just hate police. So we have this thing where this white guy, thank God he was white, because fuck, this conversation would be even harder to have if he wasn't. This guy walks up to these police. This is the moment where he gets pushed. I don't know if you notice, his hands are gesturing towards this cop. If you watch the actual video, he walks up to the cops. He is gesturing, and he walks directly to their body, inches from them. And the whole time he's being asked loudly by multiple cops to stop and back up, and he does not follow their directions. They're in the middle of a riot zone. These cops are all wearing riot gear, you can see. And he comes up and he's given that much leeway that he gets this inches from them while gesturing towards them and whatever before he gets pushed. I don't know why anyone has a problem with that. I'm pointing out, and it's cool if you do, let me know why, but I just am saying, whether you think cops should have authority or not, if you're seriously in the middle of a rioting zone, people are being murdered around you, dogs are being strangled to death around you, buildings are burning around you, and you're being asked to stop that from happening, you're on edge, and this dude comes up to you, and you're like, dude, stop. Dude, stop. Dude, stop. Dude, back up. Dude, back up. And finally you push them. Like, do you think there's really, like, a horrifying problem with that? That's not very violent. It'd be violent if he whipped out a baton and, like, smacked his fucking like, skull open and, like, started kicking him, and, like, that'd be violent. That'd be fireable. But he just pushed him back, and the guy stumbles and falls. His head bleeds. Like, I'm sorry. That's an unfortunate occurrence. When I'm teaching special ed, we have a thing called calm body. Calm body, because sometimes kids have issues understanding movements of their bodies and when they're being perceived as calm and when they're not. And it can be important, especially in police interactions, to know what it's like to have a calm body. And so we have to, like, really teach them what a calm body is. And a calm body, if you don't know, I'm saying this for a reason. A calm body is when you're at calm. None of your muscles are very tensed. Your arms are sitting. You're not making movements. That's not calm body. I have not had a calm body for this whole episode. I've been gesturing and moving around. That's not a calm body. This man didn't have a calm body. So people are like, what's your definition of calm? And I'm like, my definition of calm is not walking towards somebody while gesturing. That's not calm. I don't know what your definition of calm is, but that's not it. Calm would be if he was just, not gesturing and standing and saying, like, I'd like to speak with you. That's calm. That's calm as fuck. So we could debate now whether or not it's okay to approach cops without a calm body. That could be its debate, but I don't think we can debate whether or not he had a calm body. He didn't. And again, if you're in the middle of, like, a basically war zone and you're being asked to control humans who are uncontrollable humans, and stop violence from happening, and you're already on edge, and there's somebody approaching you and getting in your face who's not responding to your direction, shoving them is the least that you could do. So I thought that is pretty unfortunate. They don't even get a fair deal right now. This cop was, fired. And so 57 other officers resigned with him, and people celebrated. Like, yeah, fuck those police. Fuck the 57 people who stood up for their friend who didn't do anything wrong. Who cares that guy was 75? He made the choice to approach these people. And if I were on a perimeter or something and I was asked to protect it and somebody came up to me like that, I would also push them. I don't know who wouldn't. If you think you're like the angelic being who can maintain eternal peace in the midst of a riot and have someone aggress upon you and not push them back finally when they reach your physical barrier of your body, like, you're a saint, dude. You're saintly. I don't know many saints. I'm not sure how many people could fucking deal with that situation in a different way. It's not fair. And yes, thank you, Cody. And hello, Cody. Welcome. Cody says, if it's being broadcast on the news, we must consider it suspect. And many people have pointed out that perhaps this guy that we see in this picture had actually a blood packet in his head and that this whole thing was planned anyway. So there's that too. And that could totally be true. But I have to say, how fair is it to want this guy fired for trying to, maintain some sort of order, which he's totally allowed to do, and we've given him the job of doing it, and then fire him for it, and then to celebrate the 57 people. Again, if these 57 people, I'm just gonna guess, if it's real, that these are the 57 people who are really good people. These are the 57 people who thought and said, wow, this is so unfair, and my friend is being harmed, I'm gonna stand up for them. I could be wrong. They could be the worst. They could be the ones out raping and killing. I could be totally wrong, and we could be like, woohoo, thank God they're gone. I don't know. But I think it's silly to not consider these details and to just assume fuck that cop and fuck all the 57 people who resigned. Like, that seems a bit much to me. It doesn't seem very fair. It doesn't seem very logical. And again, who are the fucking saints who are going to step in and be in place of those 57 people who are going to try to stop buildings from being burned and people from being raped and dogs from being tortured in the street? I bring up the dog because that happened. If you don't know, some random looters or rioters broke into a pound and stole a dog and then tortured it to death on the street. Like, that's fucking crazy. If it's real. And maybe it's not. But who are the saints? Who are the saints who are going to step in? Never, ever. Even if someone's in their face, gesturing wildly, aggressing at them, and yelling at them in the middle of a riot zone, just not even push them. Who are those saints who are going to do that? I don't know that those people exist. I don't know what we expect from cops, but saintliness surely cannot be a requirement for being a police person. That seems insane. And we have no compassion all of a sudden. It's really cool again. Like, we've had, like, fuck the police, you know, and it's, like, fun to say it. It's, like, cool, and we're all, like, used to hating on the police and being scared of the police and whatever. And then you, like, stop and just try to fucking think for a second. Like, those are just people. They're just human beings. They're not, like, clone army things in, like, human suits or whatever. They're, like, human beings who are just, like, thinking that they're doing a job that society does actually need, and that they're helping people. And now all of a sudden the country's like, you can't even push a person and we will fucking fire you and eviscerate you and fuck you and your friends. Like, that's crazy. And who are the fucking saints who are going to step up in their place? And again, if you've never lived somewhere where there are no police, I really think it's ignorant of you to assume that you want the police gone. I would like you to live there for even a few months and tell me that. And if you specifically are a person who does actually know how to protect yourself, that's awesome. Most people aren't there with you, and it's not fair of you to decide that those people no longer get the same protection that you can give yourself. So now we have a whole entire nation. Oh, yeah. And if you saw, I don't know if you saw this. I don't think you guys can hear this video. Can you guys hear that? All right, I don't even know if you guys can hear this, so I'm going to not play it. But I highly suggest you go listen to at least part of this, the press conference that the New York Police Department held, just for no other reason than to realize that cops are human beings and that it fucking hurts their feelings that the entire country right now just hates cops. And it would mine too. If I were in this job, in this position, and I thought I was helping, and people, most of them do really believe that. Most of them do. Most of them are not evil fucks who want power over other people. They're, like, trying to help. They think that. Even if we know that the system can't really, like, be like that, like, that's what they believe. They're not, you know? I don't know. I don't know how you can look at someone who really believes that and doesn't rape and kill and use their power and abuse it and not understand that they're human beings and deserve some fucking compassion. Like, again, it's like, I don't know. If you can work your whole life at something that you love and then have the entire country suddenly hate you and you didn't even do anything wrong and not feel any emotion over it, I guess you're, like, a psychopath. But I think it's fucked up. I think it's fucked up right now that the whole fucking country is just like, fuck all police, let's kill them and defund them. I'm like, dude, what? They're just fucking people. And the whole fucking country is calling for it. And here's another interesting thing. I'm like, I want to search for this, you know, defund the police. I want just, like, a real quick, like, thing to be able to show people, like, yeah, the whole country is actually calling to defund the police. Just psycho. And instead I get these articles that are, like, pure propaganda, pure illogical, rhetorical propaganda, full of pathos, appeals to pathos, and no logic, and nothing that actually talks about the movement to defund the police. This one talks about, you know, how Trump is bad and police are bad and brutality is everywhere and George Floyd is a saint and this vivid tragedy is unfolding around the country, and it just, like, goes into all this other shit, and it doesn't even talk about defunding the police. And this article also, it talks about, it's like you think, oh, okay, well, this one will, because it talks about how Minneapolis' city council actually voted to defund the police. This one has to have facts in it, right? No. In fact, the whole article, you could go read it. It's the same shit. It's a bunch of propaganda. It's about, like, calls for police reforms, and it's about riots, and it's about George Floyd, and it's about the history of racism and oppression, and it never actually gets to the point where they talk about the actual vote or what they actually plan. Awesome. Good article, assholes. Finally, I found an article that did talk about it, I think. It kind of talked about it. This one at least talked about how the actual plan is to defund the police and instead give that money to let's find it because they talk about it. Here we go. Their city council president, Lisa Bender, along with a majority that cannot be vetoed, announced a plan to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department. And maybe Minneapolis Police Department is toxic as fuck. I don't fucking know. Maybe this is a great move, but it doesn't seem necessary to really like politicize it that much. Like, this toxic relationship with these people who probably prevented massive amounts of crimes. Let's just fuck all of them. And then blah, blah, blah. We hear you. George Floyd, the possible porno star who was on meth and held pregnant ladies at gunpoint. That saint. We're here because we hear you that he was killed by his good friend of 17 years. And we want to end police. It's just insane. And so we want to end the police departments. Instead, Bender said that council would start a conversation with the community about what the new community-led public safety program will entail. It's cool. Like, I think it'd be rad. There are definitely things that cops are called to do that cops don't need to be doing. Like, there's, mental health crises, and there's drug overdose, perhaps, or maybe some domestic disputes. I don't know. There's shit, or like dogs in a fucking bush or whatever, there's shit that cops get called to do. It's like, yeah, we definitely don't need people with guns there to handle this situation. So it would be cool to have this, community-led public safety program where we have people who can go help provide services, connect people to services, and like actually help instead of escalate or whatever. That's cool, but there's no reason, and no one ever addresses this, there's no reason why we can't add that to our program instead of taking money away from the police to do it. Again, I've lived somewhere where they took money away from the police, and I saw the direct doubling of crime in that area because of it. And I want to point out that this is a rural area where lots of people had lots of guns, and that didn't stop it. So take what you will from that. So yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to have community-led public stuff, help stuff and whatever. But I don't know why you have to take money away from the police to do it. You don't, in fact, but that's the only way it's being framed. And that's the only discussion we're allowed to have. Because if we don't have only that discussion, we are racist. Absolutely. So that's the double-speak world we live in right now, where facts don't matter and emotion does. And you're not actually allowed to talk about facts and details because you're racist. So it's cool. I mean, if they're like rainbow, power warriors of magic can stop meth heads from raping, people and stealing their fucking life from them, like, that'd be rad. I don't think that most meth heads I've hung out with and known haven't been deterred by Rainbow Love community groups or whatever. So, I mean, I guess we'll see, right? We'll see what kind of fucking chaotic world we live in when there are no police and there's just the Rainbow Tribe at work against the forces of evil. If you've never hung out with meth heads, I don't know, dude. They're pretty fucking evil people in general. And again, you're going to like take this money away from the police. The police are well trained. They have a history. They have codes of, conduct. Like, whether you believe it or not, there's actually ways to get fucked up police out of the system because we actually have laws against that. And like, if you can like organize enough and present it, go through like the channels, you can actually affect this change. Like, I've seen it done. I have friends who work towards that type of thing, and it's like slow and unforgiving, unlovable work, but like, you're taking away an organization that has all of that already in place to replace it with who knows what the fuck what, and who knows what the fuck kind of like codes of conduct, who knows what kind of like accountability these people will have, or who they'll even be, what kind of training they'll have. No one even cares. They just want the Rainbow Warriors to come and to get rid of the bad guys with guns, the bad men with guns, because this is a cartoon world, and apparently no one can think about details. We can only paint things in broad strokes of retardation. And then beyond that, what happens when those patrols of people are, entrenched? So now we've got the Rainbow Patrol, but it's like 5 years out, and it's been infiltrated by all the same fucks who infiltrate any system, and they've gotten into their places of power. It's going to be the same fucking thing. Dude, what is that place in Seattle right now? In their little anarchy freeland, which is not anarchist at all, but people pretend it is because they're stupid. That that autonomous zone in Seattle already has corruption. It already has people abusing their power. They already have borders in which they won't let certain people in. Isn't that racist? Yeah, the shit, when you build new shit, it also has the same problems. Unless you work to fucking stop it. It's fucking crazy. So we're gonna make these totally new things. And again, the criminals will see that there's no one to stop them. Oh, why did I throw this in here? Oh yeah, because we're not only stopping police. We can't just get rid of police. We have to also brainwash everybody into the Black Lives Matter movement. So every single video game company right now, I don't know if you play video games, but if you turn on your Xbox or your PlayStation or you play many online games, you're going to see shit like this. You didn't ask for it. You may or may not love it or agree with it, but it's going to be put in your face because nobody cares about your choice to have opinions on your own. They just care about propagandizing you and brainwashing you into the movement. You have to go along with this movement. It doesn't matter if it's been co-opted. It doesn't matter who funded it. It doesn't matter if it's going to destroy your city and your country. You have to support it because if you don't, you're racist, even though, as we pointed out, not much of this is actually helping Black people. And in fact, in the end, it seems like what it's going to help is crime increase from all people, in all colors, in all communities. But this propaganda came out. Then we have to not just cancel the police department, we have to cancel anything that paints police in any kind of a positive light. As though there were no positive aspects of police presence or police people or the career of being a police person. Now you have to cancel cartoons about cops. I would never let my kid watch Paw Patrol if I had one. I wouldn't let them be like brainwashed by that propaganda. I would not let them be brainwashed by any propaganda. I'd probably not let them watch much of anything. But I think it's pretty sick to say that we can't even have TV shows about police. There are some people who like police. It's okay. They're allowed to have their shows. We have shows about everything. We have shows about cake. You know, like people are allowed to watch what they want. It doesn't fucking matter. But now we can't have it because it's, I don't even know. They don't even say it's racist, but like basically that's the call. Watching a cartoon police dog is racist, and it supports centuries of oppression somehow to watch an animated police dog solve crimes. They're saying that anything that is, you know, showing police in a positive light is unfair. They already, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but they already years ago on the show Cops stopped showing God, I don't even remember. They stopped showing Black interactions with the cops as much as was actual reality because they didn't want to be accused of being racist, even though the number of interactions they had with people who are actually, because they don't show every interaction. They show the interactions with people who are like actually breaking the law and have been shown to be breaking the law. So they stopped doing that. They started editing reality so that they wouldn't be made to seem to be racist. I hope I said that right because it's true and it is not racist. It might be racist that they did it. Might not be. But it's definitely questionable whether or not you should edit reality in order to fit a narrative. Anyway, they're killing off Paw Patrol and other police shows because it's not enough to just defund the police. We have to completely erase all mention of police, just like we have to erase all mentions of history, tear down all the statues. None of it ever happened. Nobody ever read 1984, I guess. Nobody understands what damage that can do to the future. It's ridiculous. Anyway. Oh yeah. Oh, we're back to George Soros because who invested a ton of $45 million into Activision and Blizzard? These are gaming corporations. And George Soros donated all that money. Well, how convenient that Black Lives Matter, which he also donates money to, would suddenly take over all of these games. Like, he's dead set on making sure that you know that you're a fucking racist if you don't do exactly what him and his people say, even though it has very little at this point to do with Black people. Okay. Let's check back in with the chat. Oh, thank you so much, Cody. Cody for the super chat. You're a star. I love it. Thank you so much. I love the support. I love Cody says, I can't imagine being a cop now with the body cams, etc. I would only police Mayberry with Aunt B. I think it's cool. I think body cameras are a pretty good way to make sure that, like, you're not, you know, raping and killing people. Like, that's neat. I don't know. I liked that there was a place recently where a guy actually got fired for turning off his body cam. Not just for turning it off, but for turning it off and then specifically, like, some incident happened and then, like, the person, I think, got hurt or maybe even killed. And that, you know, footage was suspiciously missing. So it's cool to, like, that's a good time to fire a cop. That's a great time to fire a cop. But, dude, yeah, it'd be hard. It would be hard to walk around with a body camera on all the time. Like, man, you can't even fart. Deuce says, it might be a great time to reconsider life choices for those cops with a conscience. Well, fuck, I hope more cops with a conscience join the force. Honestly, that'd be rad. The cops with a conscience should stick around and hopefully, I mean, every time I interact with a cop, I hope it's a cop with a conscience. So I hope they don't leave the force. That would suck. Maybe that's not what you're saying. I don't know. But the Andy Griffith Show is leaving Netflix in July 2020. Shut up. You can't even... Oh, you can't even have Andy Griffith. It's crazy. It's like Gone with the Wind, all this shit. You just, like, you can't. Someone pointed out, too, that Gone with the Wind, even though they're canceling it because some people might think it's racist, was the first, I might get this wrong, you can correct me, but it was the first Academy Award to a person of color, I want to say. A black person was for that movie. So... is that not racist to cancel that movie that was this huge, you know, achievement for people of color? I don't know. Okay, so Cody's super chat says, thank you for your content. I would suggest checking out a channel called Hoaxbuster. I have. That's a great channel. I feel most of your subscribers would find value in that content as well. I'm sure they do. Thank you for mentioning it. Oik says, didn't they scrap a law which then allowed government to lie legally via media and TV? Yes, they did. Obama actually failed to reinstate the law that I can't remember the name of at the moment because my brain is shot. I've been working for 2 weeks straight, like 12 hours a day. He scrapped it, though, and what it had done was prevent the government from creating and distributing propaganda to its own citizens. And so since then, they have been able to legally create and distribute propaganda to their own citizens. And we've seen that happen in all over the place. So all over the place. TV shows, movies, the news, all of it. So yeah, we can have, in fact, somebody pointed out that makes false flags totally legal, by the way. I'm just checking stuff out. The Yeti says cake is racist. That's true. Don't eat cake. It's racist. You're not allowed. It's racist and classist. Reno 911 was funny. Alan Marcus, welcome to the show. It was funny, and that we're probably not allowed to like that either. As to allowing other cops to pull things that aren't cool. Oh, Deuce was clarifying. Yes, yeah, no, it'd be awesome. I think that does happen. You know, I know some cops, and they definitely try to have that influence on their peers because, you know, when people are in power, they tend to abuse that power. And so when we have people of conscience in there that can help keep people, you know, back from that, then that's cool. So Eric July is a cool YouTuber. You might want to check him out. And this video, I think it's this video. If not, it's one of the ones right around this. All his videos are worth watching. He's very cool. He's a good, is he anarchist or libertarian? I don't remember, but his point of view is awesome. But he points out, and I wanted to paraphrase him. He said, cool, if you're going to defund the police, then you need to get rid of all of them, right? All of them at once. You need to get rid of all of them. And you can't replace them with the pseudo police. You can't bring out the Rainbow Patrol. You can't bring out the community, whatever, because that's just another institution that's going to develop into the exact same organization. So if you replace them, even if it's, this watered down pansy ass version of it, it's going to build up into the exact same thing. So you can't replace them. So you have to get rid of all of them. You cannot replace them with another institution or organization. You have to get rid of the taxes that we use to pay their salaries and, pay for this organization. Give it back to us, and stop taxing us, tax us at a lower rate. You have to get rid of all laws that prevent or limit any gun ownership ever, period, right? Because we have to be able to protect ourselves. And you have to get rid of any laws that limit our ability to protect ourselves. So any laws that might hold us accountable if someone did break into our property and we killed them, you'd have to get rid of those laws as well. So you'd have to make it completely legal for us to have the weapons that we need, completely legal for us to defend ourselves in all situations, no matter how the law interprets them, and, get rid of the taxes and not replace them. I love this list. I could start to get behind defund the police if that were the list of requirements for getting rid of them. But I have to add a couple things to it. So Eric July is awesome. Go check him out. And what I'm going to add to his list is I would add that we have to then also encourage or maybe even require, no, we can't require it because I'd be replacing it. So we're going to have to encourage neighborhood militias and provide training for any person who wants to be a part of their neighborhood's militia. Train them in the art of using weaponry and self-defense and, other aspects of police work, like investigation and whatnot. And then I might be able to get behind defund the police, because then we will have had a plan and we will have thought it through and we will be enacting steps that will keep our neighborhoods protected. Like we have seen, crime increases when cops go away, but crime might not increase when cops go away alongside community militias and, community empowerment of self-defense. But we don't have that. We don't have that now, and that's not what they're talking about giving us. So what they are talking about giving us is actually bad for us, and it is not going to cause a good situation to come about, even though a slice of it is somewhat similar to what you might want if you're an anarchist or a libertarian or, an otherwise person who doesn't like the state's largeness. That's not what they're giving us. They're giving us something that will actually destroy our communities and degrade our ability to be protected people in a civil engagement. Right? So, so replacing it with another institution, the Rainbow Brigade, that's not going to change anything in the long run. But in the short run, it will cause a lot more problems for a lot more people. But if we did replace it with a culture of self-defense and community protection, then that could be a step towards something good. Again, I want to point out, many police are really beautiful people. This is really hard for me to watch. This also happened in Granite Falls. There was a crash in which 3 young people died at once. You're not going to be able to hear this, I know. But you see, this woman runs up and realizes her daughter is dead, and this cop just holds her through it. Just a cop on the scene. He didn't ask to be there that day. We're just lucky that he has a heart. And I just want to remind you, again, cops are human beings, and some of them are incredibly good people who are loving and compassionate. And so I'm going to leave it on that image as I read you this thing that my friend wrote. And my friend is a cop. And I never thought I'd have a friend that is a cop, but I do. I'm going to check in with the chat before I read this. Alan Marcus adds, has any plan to defund police departments suggested installing more security cameras? I haven't seen it. I honestly don't think they have plans, Alan. I think their plan is literally to let love lead the way and hope, which is a ridiculous plan. Yeah. Biggie Smollett points out, it looks like more of a cash grab than an actual solution, for sure. So I met this person actually through a conspiracy group. This is a conspiracy theorist person. This person I had met with in person because we had like a meetup in the area where I lived in through an online conspiracy group, which is kind of funny that you can get conspiracy people to meet up in person, but you can. And it was really fun because it was, we had our little social interaction with like, I don't know, I think there was like 7 people there or something. And when I found out that she was studying or training to become a police person, I was like floored. I was like, wait, what? I was like, you can see through all this shit, all of it. I mean, like Sandy hoax and, like all the shit we talk about, everything on this channel. She's like, yeah, word. Like she can get behind that. And you can still want to be a police. Like I just blew my mind. I was like, how did this happen? It's like, don't you want to be as far away from police as possible? And she pointed out that she wanted to become a police person to be a person who understood the world as it was and be in that position of power to help as many people as possible. And I was like, well, what a noble fucking thing. Like, and I know there's people out there listening that are like, oh, she was a plant. Like this, no, this person was in college, like not a trained like FBI plant. Plus I've been around many, many agent provocateurs and plants, and I can smell a fucking pig and like that. And she wasn't. And you can take my word for it or not, doesn't matter. But anyway, she was a very good person and is a very good person. And it blew my mind that she wanted to be a police person. But again, I think like, what a beautiful thing. And it's the same reason I wanted to become a teacher. I saw through all the shit. I knew that teaching, I know that schools are, worlds of indoctrination meant to enslave us. And so I want to go into that organization to try and protect as many people from as much of the bullshit as possible and possibly even wake a few of them up. She had a very similar outlook to me, so I actually can relate to it. So I was like, well, yeah, that actually makes sense, like why some people might be in that exact position. So I told her I was doing this show, and she wanted to share this with you. So this is her words from here on for a minute. She says, "It's a weird time to be someone who is a self-considered conspiracy theorist, but also someone who thinks the all cops are bad tag that's been going around is completely unjustified. In a complete generalization of those labeled as conspiracy theorists, one would assume most of those people don't trust any government organization, especially one where your privacy and power can be taken away by another individual with a badge. Thankfully, however, it takes all kinds of kinds in this world, and that remains the same for any group, conspiracy-related or not. I am currently a law enforcement agent, at least viewed that way by the community through my probation officer position. I have worked with cops at my current job, my past jobs, and even pursued as a career a police officer position before deciding I may not be the best fit. Not all cops are bastards, but yes, some of them should have never landed in the role they are in. Prior to working in probation, I worked on a university campus as a public safety officer, or a mall cop as we referred to it, in the heart of a city that frequently saw auto prowlers, assaults, burglaries, rapes, etc. It was important to me to see how I would feel in a uniform and how I felt about how others would perceive me. What would it be like contacting individuals twice my size? I'm a 5'2" female with little to no muscle, unfortunately. And how I would handle myself in an emergency. I worked night shift for 2.5 years, and we worked frequently with the police. I would say the majority of my interactions with them were positive. Their response times to our incidents were less than perfect, but I was able to witness what I would determine as good cops who care about their job. I witnessed police officers comfort our students when they had to recall or report traumatic incidents in hopes that they could get some justice. I also dreaded a few officers because of the way they treated us like little kids playing cop, and a few just severely lacked compassion for anything they responded to. I also had other factors to consider when determining whether I wanted to be a cop. Can I feel confident in shooting a gun or inflicting physical harm on someone? My physical strength may not get me anywhere, so it is most likely a taser or another form of non-lethal weapon will have to be used. How will my mental health change from the stress of my job? Am I ready to realize my day is probably going to be filled with people who hate me more than like me? After all, it is a thankless job, and you shouldn't sign up because you want to be glorified. I also considered what it would look like if I had to use lethal force, even if justified, and we could debate about what justified looks like all day long. Against a person of color, would I be more likely to avoid inflicting injury and therefore risk my own safety because I would be scared my name would be blasted across the internet and forever deemed a racist? I was even worried that just being a cop would label me as a racist and that someone who just wants a position of power. These thoughts are uncomfortable to admit, but they did go through my head. And I know there are many people who may say, you're worried about being labeled a racist, but people of color have to worry every day about any interaction with police at all. And maybe that's true, and maybe I'm being completely insensitive. However, these were the factors that I had to consider, and ultimately I settled with a position with probation that allowed me more face time with individuals making their way through the criminal justice system. It is my hope that I can help them jump through the hoops they need to get through and hopefully never see them again. She continues, I believe we have all had interactions with cops who were great and helpful, and those who were just complete assholes. I've interacted with both kinds in my professional and personal life. I'm not sure those assholes justify abolishing the police or labeling every single one of them as bastards. I want to believe that we are a more compassionate society than that, and that we can see that not everything is black and white. Reform is necessary in any institution, and I believe the vetting process for hiring cops needs to be evaluated. I've worked with many campus security guards who I hated going out on calls with because of the way they spoke to individuals. They were condescending and even borderline aggressive. Yet these people went on to become police officers with no hiccups in the hiring process. I also had 2 other friends who I would trust in this position of power who were rejected simply because of their polygraphs were inconclusive. I could not believe some of the narcissistic people who got hired even passed the mental health exam, while my other 2 friends didn't get a shot because a machine couldn't read the results properly. Still, I find myself very disheartened by the outcry of fuck the police and all cops are bastards, and I need to resign. I encourage those who hate the police so much to stick by their values and not call them in times of crisis. Or better yet, I encourage those who want to see change in the system to become police officers instead. What better way to change the system than to do it from inside the organization? I realize that is a big ask because the nature of this job is not very attractive to most people, hence our hiring and vetting problem. I do not believe all or even the majority of cops are bad people or inherently racist, and the data shows that as well. I believe most cops who see someone take the life of another person that was completely unjustified probably hate that cop more than the rest of society. I certainly do not think that any of us are thanking the police when we get a ticket or that we've all had nothing but great interactions with cops. However, I don't want to live in a world where I can't call the police when I'm in trouble. I do want to live in a world where our police are trained better in mental health and crisis response, which many police departments are investing in, and where cops come to work every day to provide service and protection to the community. I believe the majority already do this, and it does not serve humanity to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Praying for compassion and clarity for all. That was her letter that she wanted to share with you, and I hope that you hear it and listen to a human being sharing with you from her heart and see how already the system has failed us, because that is the exact person we should want as like a prominent police person who is very active in the community, if not like a sheriff or higher, because she has such a good heart and an ability to see all of the problems in a very fair and balanced way, and is a conspiracy theorist and like actually gets it. And yet that's the person who we pushed out and made into a probation officer instead because of all of the reasons that she listed, right? Like this is what we do, I think, when we take an entire group of people and we treat them like we are bigots and assume that all of them are assholes and heartless and horrible and like, oh, well, if they're part of the system, then they must be fucked up. It's like, if you can't see how some people purposely go into the system to help, there might be something that you're missing. And it's interesting, you know? Again, I just want to point out that many cops are like this man here and incredibly compassionate, beautiful people in times of... But we also have this warning. If we get rid of cops, there's more than what I just talked about could happen. And this could be the plan all along. There's something called the Strong Cities Network. You may not have heard of. I'll throw this random article I found about it in here in the chat. Oik says, cops are known to be Freemasons, especially in the U.S. That cop who I just read to you about is not a Freemason. So, no, not all cops are Freemasons. Just like anything, if you say everybody in one group is blank, you are very obviously wrong. It's very obviously not true. Maybe many of them are. There's many Freemasons in every kind of organization, I'm sure. That's kind of what they do. That's kind of their thing. And again, you can't remove the government and then just hope that something comes along to replace it. Why can't we govern ourselves? Because we don't. If we already did, we wouldn't have a government, period. We don't govern ourselves, and 97% of people you know wouldn't even understand what you meant when you said that, and that's why we don't and can't. And when we want to, we will get more serious about creating structures in our communities that do exactly all the things that the government does, and then we won't need them anymore, and they will go away. Buckminster Fuller said it. You don't tear down the thing you don't like, you build the thing you do. That's what you do. Anyway, the Strong Cities Network is an international group that has decided that they have their own laws. The Strong Cities Network is actually a new law enforcement body whose laws will govern participating cities, including New York, Atlanta, Denver, Minneapolis. And they have already signed on as members. Law enforcement measures for these cities will dovetail with or emanate from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue and the United Nations, not from the U.S. Constitution and locally elected officials and the laws governing them. Again, hate the government all day, that's cool, but this kind of shit should worry you, and your local government is the one thing standing in between you and them. In this moment of history, we don't live in pretend world where we can just suddenly abolish all of the governments of the world and like have peace-loving fucking rainbow time. Like, we actually live in a three-dimensional world with physical reality around us, and we have to deal with the reality that exists. And the reality that exists seems to be that these people are intentionally destroying our police departments and our ability to resist things like the United Nations and the Strong Cities Network that want to come into our country and take over. Maybe that's not true, but seems pretty true. We know the globalists have been at this for a while, and here's one of their ends. So to ignore the possible hints that this could be what's coming would be silly, and to investigate it and to wonder, maybe there's a reason why all of a sudden police are being called to disband at the same time that riots are breaking out all across the country. And maybe there's a reason why George Soros is behind both aspects of that movement. Both prongs of those movements. And maybe this Strong Cities Network kind of points us in the right direction. That, as someone pointed out earlier in the chat, when you get rid of the police and then crime doubles or worse, and shit is falling apart and the economy's bad and all of this stuff, then the UN has the perfect in to come in and say, oh, look, we'll help you. We're here to help you. And people will be like, woo, yay, international police. I agree with this statement. Widespread understanding of the slogan, support your local police and keep them independent, has never been more needed. Again, the smaller and more localized and more independent we can get within our government, as corrupt and whatever as you might think this government is, the better things will be. And to just dismiss it all and hope for the best is not a plan, and that's how chaos and horror happens. If you have a cool plan, I'd love to hear it. Eric July had one, and I added a little bit to it, and that plan is cool. That's a plan. It could be put into action, but to just roll forward and hope is ridiculous. That's what a child would do, and we're not children. We're adults. Yikes. Deuce says, Lindsay, I think you're making a translation to no government and no cops much more difficult than it is. Natural things happen naturally, communities bond, etc. No, they don't. I don't think you've been in a situation where the structures you're used to disappear and nothing takes its place. If you have, let me know, but I have, and nothing good happens. Again, you have to actually already have the idea and the plan in motion for it to work. You can't just go out tomorrow into your community and be like, hey, everybody, let's build a thing and do it. And everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, let's do it. Again, look at the autonomous zone in Seattle right now. That is what they think they're doing. They're like, look at us. We're going to build this whole new country and we're going to have this whole government. And again, they're already beset by violence and border issues and border control and running out of food and shit because they didn't plan any of it. They just ran into it unthinking with just the idealism and just the idealism, and that's it. You can do anything you want, but it doesn't lead to things being created that work well. Things that work well need plans, and they need people working together to accomplish it. And you can't just hope. You can. It just doesn't work out well. Adults do not need governing. I don't know any adults, oik. I know about 3 out of 100. So yeah, adults don't, but there aren't any. So I wrote this open letter to servicemen and women. This includes cops and it includes military people. And you may judge me for it until you get to the end. And if you do, that's your problem and there's something wrong with you. So if you want to hear what I have to say, then you can continue listening. And if you don't, bye-bye. To the very brave and valiant people who aim to protect and serve. And I say that because I don't know many people who would go out and intentionally put themselves at an 18 times more likely chance of getting killed than any other job. So I think they're brave. Who aim to protect and serve, because I think a lot of them do aim to do that, and then maybe they don't always end up doing it because the system is broken, and that's intentional. But anyway, we give you all our respect. We know you do one of the most difficult jobs humans have yet created. You are supposed to keep us safe from all manner of harm in an infinitely harmful world. We know that you work from the very core of your soul, from the very center of your love for humanity. We celebrate your care and your dedication to what you know is right. We are eternally grateful for the sacrifices you should never have to make, but do every day. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to tell you about a thing that you do as a teacher. You can have a student who is struggling and not doing well and sucks at everything, and you can say to them, wow, I'm really proud of how you did that thing so well. And instead of looking at you like you're crazy because they didn't, they go, oh, I did a thing well, and someone's proud of me. And then they start acting in the way that you told them you were proud of them for acting, which they hadn't actually done yet, but then they start doing it. It's a mental trick that you can play on people, and so I'm doing that in this first paragraph. If you didn't notice it, you can look back at it and see it at work. I continue. We know you face your darkest fears to keep us from ours. We know you dig to the deepest level of self in order to fight for what we collectively value in our nation. You fight for goodness, for sanctity, for respect, for freedom, for our rights, and for our ability to thrive in peace. And we know you could never be compensated enough. We know that we do an abysmal job of paying you back. I don't know if you know what cops make, but it's bullshit, and they should be paid more because they die at a higher rate. They face a lot more injury. Almost 100% of them are traumatized by the things they deal with from day to day, as you would be if you dealt with constant drug addiction, constant violence, constant homelessness, constant horror all day, every day. You would also have trauma too. Nobody can avoid it. That's what the job entails. We see that you often scrape by, living paycheck to paycheck, and that you are sometimes left without support at all, forgotten by the society that begged you for your help. We know that there are servicemen and women living on the streets, suffering from mental illness created from the very jobs we would not do ourselves. And we cannot forgive the system that has let them down and let them suffer. We know you deserve more than you've ever been given. I don't know if you know that, but the majority of homeless people are often people who served in the military or the police force. The system also fails them. And this is something I'm trying to get people to see, that we're all oppressed together. There are people, I go on to say, who sully the name of the profession in every sector, but perhaps it cannot sting worse than it does when they profess the values you do and when they deceptively say they uphold those utterly necessary promises you make to the people of this nation. For trust to be effective, it cannot withstand such abuses, and yet it does. We still trust you. We still want to work with you. We still want to uphold a promise we make to each other, from citizen to service people, and from your ranks to the masses on the streets. We are in this together. I wrote this before COVID. Forgive that statement. We are in this together, and I hate that they took that from us. I go on to say, there has always been and always may be an element that does not uphold our values and does not work for the betterment of all and does not uplift the common people and the ranks of those in service. And these people will use any sliver of advantage they can to bolster their own ventures and restrict the rest of ours. These forces will use citizenry by sowing the seeds of hatred for our own protectors, pointing to the few that have poisoned your role in our society. These forces will use you by asking you to stand against, hold back, fight, imprison, or kill your fellow people. I wrote this before any of this happened. I wrote this months ago. And look how what I have said has come true. I go on to say, we know that if that time ever comes, you will look into your hearts. Remember the core of what you are, what you stand for, and what you fought for, and stand next to your brothers and sisters. We all live together, or we all die together. There is no force that can divide a people united, and we choose to stay united with you as we have never truly been apart. No matter how much certain elements have asked us to hate you, And no matter how many have fallen into that trap, we will never forget. For the majority of us still remember this truth. There is no difference between us, whether we wear the badge or the uniform or the layperson's attire. We are one people of one nation, and we stand united. Please remember us always. Please do not forget that we are with you. We can do anything together. In love, the people of the world. Again, my hope is that people who are in the police force do remember their heart and their soul and don't turn against us when asked to by forces of evil. And even better, if we can retain them in their position and they also retain their hearts and souls, and we don't let the actions of just a few of them taint our entire understanding of every single person. Again, it's pure bigotry to look at a whole group of people and say, all of you are bastards, fuck all of you. That doesn't make sense. That's the heart of racism. That's the heart of every single aspect of bigotry. You can't look at an entire group and judge them all. That Seattle thing is a psyop. Absolutely. All the shit that's going on is a psyop. But it doesn't change the fact that all of the children pretending to be adults that are playing at it are real people. There's only a few of those people in there that are the plants. Everyone else is like, yeah, let's play forts with guns and let's fucking have our own country. And like, they're like children. They're children playing adult. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's my open letter to police. Again, I wrote it months ago, and I wrote it after a talk with Jimmy Brent, and you can go back and watch that interview if you want. But one of the things that we talked about and came to is that, that we understood that the powers that be would love for us to be divided against our fellow police people. And, that this makes us all weaker. In the end, it makes the cops weaker, it makes us weaker. And it's so simple to do, and it's so fucking easy. And I just want you to think about yourself and think about why you might hate police people. And then ask yourself, do I even know a police person? And have I ever talked to one as just like a human to a human being? And if you haven't, you're as bad as most racists or any other people who hate an entire group without any real fucking evidence or whatever, especially if you realize that there's psyops going on and people like George Soros who are intentionally trying to degrade this country. Again, if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement's page and you read their creed and what they're about, it does not read like a list of things that will be beneficial to Black people. It reads like the Communist Manifesto. This is what George Soros is behind. There's a reason why you go about destroying the institutions and communities that are already in place in a nation before you take it down, and it's because it creates weakness, and we don't have a perfect system, but if we throw it away before we create something better to take its place, then we will get exactly what they want for us, because we will be weakened and destroyed, and we won't have any way to create anything anymore. It is stupidity, it is ignorance that causes people to give away what they already have and just hope that the magic that will fill its place will be better than what they had before. That's not how things work. You actually have to think, and you have to plan, and you have to work to create things, and it's not easy. What is really, really easy to do is it's easy to say, fuck the police. They fucking kill people, and they're bastards, and they work for the system, and they're put in places of power, and they abuse their power, so fuck them. That's easy. That's the easy thing to do, and that's why everyone does it. If you've noticed, everyone does it. Very rare to find people who will stand up for the police and say, no, not all police. Not all police are bad. In fact, most aren't bad. Most are just regular people trying to do something good for the world. And yes, Jay Marley makes a good point. It's not the people I judge with the police, it's the order followers' ideology, as Mark Passio would put it. Otherwise, I agree with your argument. Well, most police aren't necessarily order followers either. Look at that guy who stood up and made his little video about, questioning coronavirus. Clearly not following orders, right? Clearly going against, in fact, the grain. His officers or whatever, his commanding people or whatever, found it and were like, dude, you need to take it down. And he was like, no. That's not an order follower. Police are not automatically order followers. To think that to do any label, if you can say the police are blank, you have already failed. That's already judgmental towards a whole group of people instead of actually looking at the billions of possibilities and all the nuance that exists therein, right? We can say there's a lot of police that do horrifying things. I listed it at the beginning of the show. They're horrifying. People in power can do horrifying things. Teachers can do horrifying things. I was a teacher. Did people like hate me just because I'm a teacher? And there's teachers who intentionally become teachers to rape kids. Like, that happens a lot. We don't have a huge movement saying fucking disband teachers and like, oh my God. And if we did, I would have this exact same discussion. I'd say I'm all for homeschooling. I'm all for tearing down this institution eventually. But most kids don't have something else in place waiting for them. And what fills that space then is nothing. It's chaos and it's destructive and it's not good. So we have to create something instead for to like take care of ourselves and our communities. We have to act like adults. If we want to be treated like adults and create our own governance and govern ourselves and be free, then we have to act like adults, and we have to do the hard work of being an adult, which is being responsible for ourselves and being so responsible for ourselves that we then can go be responsible for our communities too, because most people out there are not ready for any of this. They're not ready to be responsible for themselves at all, let alone enough to help with the building of the community structure that needs to be in place to take care of all of the things that are right now taken care of. That's the truth. So if you want to descend into just absolute chaos with no plan, that's what you want. That's cool. That's your choice. It's totally not mine. And I hope there's at least a few people who will listen to this and be like, oh, actually, I don't want total chaos. I don't want to see the horrors that happen when there's total chaos. I don't want to see how many people die and are raped and are homeless and have no food and just all the horror that comes along with absolute chaos and no system at all. I hope that that's the case. And I'm open to all sorts of ideas. I think about shit all the time, you know. I always am updating the way I view something based on new information. Like, I just found out last week that half the people that police kill are disabled, and that updated my understanding, you know, of what's going on. I like data and thinking, and I'm in no way saying that I have like the absolute truth on anything. I'm just saying I don't think many people are thinking right now. And I think a lot of people are reacting out of this old thing that most of us got from our childhoods and were programmed by, that says fuck the police. And they're using that against us, and it's working. And it's scary to see it working so easily. It's scary to see it working in communities of people who are thoughtful individuals, because we have to be ever vigilant for the programming that has been placed into our brains and our hearts. And we have to work to identify it and really, really question like everything we think. Like a lot of it is fucked up programming, you know? You have very normal, very... Like, if you were, like, in a room hanging out with a bunch of people, you didn't know them or whatever, like, you wouldn't even know if some of them were cops. You can't just take a fucking group of people and just say, fuck them, they're all bastards. And yes, that police officer probably did enforce 1,000 petty laws to generate revenue for the state. But again, people don't see the world like we do. Like, those police officers have not yet gotten to the place where they're like, oh, shit. This whole thing is corrupt. Like, that's not how the world is. And it's not their fault. They're raised in this system. They were programmed by the system, and they think that they're doing is helping people, and that's what their intention. And they're not wrong. They are. They are helping people. They just also are propping up the system. But so was I when I was a teacher. Was I evil? No. I was doing a lot of good. You know, and you should be glad that I was in that position and that I wanted to put up with all that shit to try to help. And we should be glad that they are too. I know many people who would do it, you know? So yeah, some cops are corrupt and evil motherfuckers who do horrifying things in the world. And some are fucking clowns, and they're like drunk on power, and they act like total fucking small-dicked idiots, and they're just like prance around, and they're like power, like they're assholes, you know? Some are like that. And so are some teachers. And so are some anybody in power in any position. So are some everyone, even if they have no position and no power. That's what people are like. Some are fucking stupid. Some are assholes and some are evil. There's some of everybody in every group, right? Group membership and identity does not inform you about a human being's character or their personal life or their potential or their value. No identity aspect does. You can't judge people like that. And if you do, you're ignorant. You're being ignorant. Ugh. Your best allies, in fact, are those who are purposely and intentionally cops so that they can try to help the system be better from the inside. Those are your best possible allies, right? If they're like at every level of the pyramid, there are some people who are there because they get it and because they want to try to be in those places in case they can help. Those are your best allies. If you automatically judge them all and cast them aside, you have missed the opportunity to have that powerful ally. That's ignorant. That's bigoted. That restricts you from being able to accomplish what we all need, which is a change in the system. And you abandoning your allies only harms you and them. Both of us. All of us are harmed in that when we don't work together. I'm not saying work with fucking murdering asshole power trippers. I'm saying like you can't dismiss all of them as that without knowing better, without evidence, without thinking it through, right? Once a movement appears on our television screen and has mass support from rich celebrities and companies and George Soros, it is fully co-opted, right? And it no longer serves the masses. And we know Black Lives Matter has been that, and so we know it doesn't serve the masses. And these movements cannot be reclaimed or reformed. They're gone. We have to let them go and move on. You can't reclaim it. Once those powers have their fingers in it, they own it. It's done, right? This is the same thing they always do. They don't take them until they fully remove the effective and intelligent people in them and replace them with their agents. We've seen it with Occupy. We've seen it with Anonymous and every single organization that started as a grassroots movement, all the anti-war shit. It all gets watered down, becomes a sissy group of system-supporting apologists, and we can't support those people who are doing that. We, in fact, should probably try to wake up the people who are still, delusional and part of it with the best intentions. These are our allies too. They think that they're doing great. We can't abandon them to that loss. It's not their fault that they don't see through Black Lives Matter yet. So we can't just say like fuck all those people for like supporting this co-opted system. They don't know better. We need to be open to the possibility that we can help them and be their allies. And when you're ripping apart your society and your neighborhood and your institutions and you have no backup plan already in place and already functioning, you're only handing them a consolidated power, which is exactly the point, and that's why they're doing it. They intentionally planned all of this to happen in this way so that they could easily take power in the vacuum that exists in the absence of what we ripped down for them. We did it for them. We're doing it for them. This is working out exactly as they want, and we're also playing into their hands when we run around screaming fuck the police and celebrate their disbanding. So we have to learn from them. If we're gonna try to rip it all down, we have to do like they do. We have to get our people already in place. And just like Buckminster Fuller said, we have to create the alternative before we rip down the thing that we hate. We have to create what we love before we destroy what we hate. That's what they do. That's what they go into Black Lives Matter and they take down all the shit and they create what they want and then they fucking go out and using it, right? Like we have to do the same shit. We have to be as smart or smarter than them. If you have no cops waiting in the backup to replace the ones that you're aimed to destroy, and you're destroying an organization that is mostly actually made up of average, normal people, mostly good people, you're just playing into it. You're doing the exact same thing. And remember, they plan this shit far in advance. They've been planning this shit who knows how many years, and this is just the time to unleash it and to let it go, and so here we are seeing it. And it's interesting because there's something that says there's these cycles of violence that humans roll in, maybe it's like a biorhythm or maybe it's like astrological or whatever it is. It seems to like play out throughout history. Maybe it's just them planning it, maybe that's all there is to it. But it's interesting that it coincides apparently with 2020 as a year that humans are going to unleash violence again. It's, time in the cycle. And so again, maybe they create that because they like cycles, or maybe they knew that was going to be happening. And so they're like utilizing it to their advantage because it works for their plans. But either way, it's interesting to think how easily you might be being manipulated. I might be being manipulated. Everyone might be being manipulated. And to question what we're doing and why we're doing it, and to really, really, really think as deeply as possible to consider if we're just playing into their plans. You are a very easily played pawn when you react from emotion and when you mindlessly destroy shit and when you act out of hurts that are unhealed. Like if I have been beaten by the cops, but I healed that and now I can understand that not all cops want to beat me. It's you have to heal yourself and you have to take care of your own emotions. The people who are out ripping shit down and burning shit, aside from the agent provocateurs, are people who have real hurt in them and they're just acting it out. Nobody would be able to use you in that way if you didn't have that. If you didn't have that flaw in yourself and that place where you have not done the work to heal yourself, you couldn't very easily be wound up and let go at a target, right? You wouldn't be an easily used pawn because you wouldn't have that ability to just mindlessly go along with the emotion of a moment instead of thinking. You have to do that work in order to stop yourself from being used in this way. We all do. Every single one of us has received nothing but trauma from this system, and we have to heal it in order to continue on a better path than the one that they've been able to force us down for the entirety of history. You have to ask yourself why the people who plan this for us are trying to remove police from existence, because that is clearly the plan, or it would not have media attention, it would not have politicians behind it, it would not have bills being made to support it, it would not have any of that if it wasn't their plan, right? We know that. We've seen that before. We saw Occupy doing all this good shit all around the world and had no media attention, a full media blackout for a year or more. And then it all of a sudden had a bunch of attention because they already co-opted it. They would not be calling for the disbanding of police unless it served their purpose. And that is the final thing that if you heard nothing else I said, I hope sinks into your mind if you're one of the people calling for the disbanding of the police. Why would it be getting so much support if it wasn't their plan? So until you build before you destroy, and until you discern before you judge, and until you weigh all the outcomes before you act, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Nasty motherfucker with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdala. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis-Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dust the towels, no rags. Straight melt dash, dust the ash. Turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose, my service touches the sun's surface. And rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons. Cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Hey, I ain't done yet. Lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it. It's a secret. Now you're nobody. Label somebody. Trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.